Dragon Ball. Okay. Scoot in here. All right. I used to be in this.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That'll be all.
This is going to be interesting.
That'll be all. Thank you. If you, we have an extra chair.
Please don't bother us again.
If you could clear this extra chair, we could use a little bit extra space here.
Nothing for the table. Please just.
We have a spare drink.
Oh, that's weird. The bar must have sent
Whoever
it.
finishes first gets it.
Yeah, you gotta climb in. It's like getting in a jet plane.
You can see that I'm barefoot, which actually makes me think.
At least you were wearing pants this time.
I'm always wearing pants. This weekend I had an event with, clients, speakers, etc. And the closing dinner was like in like a villa, like a pretty family style kind of environment.
So now you're just showing off.
I am super showing off right now. But the point is, halfway through dinner, we're all having a great time. Everything's going really well. It's the end of the event. I'm super happy with everything. I look down and I'm like, I'm barefoot. I shouldn't have shoes on. I was like, this isn't my personal home. But like, if anyone noticed, they didn't say anything.
Yeah. I want to get a few things out of the way.
Okay.
First of all, I don't want to assume anything. And we're going to introduce Dan. But we didn't do any training here. So just as...
In general.
Yeah, no. Just real quick. So... with the microphone, if you just want to kind of you can keep it like here, kind of in front of your mouth.
I was waiting for you to do that specific thing.
And so you can move it around. It's not gonna, if you want to readjust your position or anything, you can move it around independently. Like Shannon's bumped her glass into it before and it won't.
One time I hit it really hard and I was like, shit. And then we were watching it later and I was like, I didn't hear anything.
No, then that was good because then you hit it 4 more times after that. In the same episode.
Yeah. Tap. That's good. I was just going to say,
don't tap the top because it'll pick that up. But
Dan has seen Hypercritical.
Yeah.
And he has seen the moment where...
And the podcast.
That's fair enough. He's seen real life Hypercritical pre-podcast and now the recorded version, which is the podcast.
I think the hard part of the microphone is Dan's position because you and I can we're especially right now and I've got to reposition, so I'm
at least now you can see.
But the hard part is Dan, where he's gonna want to be talking to both of us, and the hard part is keeping, because I'll end up like this where you're talking over here and
I got to do I'm talking to Shannon.
But yeah, you can move it around as much as you want. Anyway,
no, look at him thinking about what mischief to cause. You see that look? Look at that face. He's thinking about it.
Producer.
I'm just gonna go ahead. Yeah, the producers are not happy. They were like, we went over this beforehand. You guys didn't pay attention.
Mom just got home. Things are just getting back to normal, and then you let a stranger in the house.
Yeah. So other thing, just to check off the list, this is Hypercritical, the podcast where 2 and sometimes 3, some of some of us are pretentious and entitled, some of us aren't. I don't want to assume anything for Dan. This is Hypercritical podcast where 2 entitled people have opinions about things. How long has it been since we did this podcast? Am I having a stroke right now? I'm Spencer.
No, you're Tyler.
I'm Tyler. No, I'm Spencer. This is my co-host Shannon, and we're joined today by Dan.
Dan is someone who has actually appeared on the podcast before.
Yeah, I was going to say he has been on the podcast.
Technically speaking.
Not only is he our number one mega fan who won the raffle of... if you guys didn't hear that in the previous episode, we had a little competition, and he was one of the many, many submissions that had an opportunity to come join us for a podcast as a reward. But he's also our, what would you say, our phone support, where when we have questions about technical things, he helps us out, or questions about being Irish.
Or Irish things. Yes, exactly. And I
guess, he's a friend.
You guess. Actually, I guess he's a friend. I had to be very careful about mentioning to our other very close friend
Yeah.
who is Irish that I consulted Dan on an Irish question.
Yeah.
I had to explain myself. It would have been a text to both of you, but I knew she was traveling and the whole thing. So
I was going to say...
Well, their answer would have been better than mine.
It would have been more critical.
Yeah, we would have been more considered. By the way, this is episode 13.
Oh, this is episode 13.
Whereas I think
God, we're so far ahead.
I was sat there, can't remember what I was having, but I definitely had a drink.
Ooh,
I had
yeah,
a
you
drink
told
in my
me at the
hand,
time.
and then I think you just said, and I was like, all right, here's 4 bullet points off the top of my head.
It was perfect though. It was spot. And like I knew you would answer me, and that's why like with Laura, I was like, there are times where we're Laura.
Yeah.
There are times where we're talking, and like if it's late enough, like she's the type to just be like, I'm done with technology for the evening. I'm like, Dan will be around.
Hold on. I'm just going to reach across and do something. I forgot to hit a button, and I don't think it affects the recording.
I was gonna say, is it the
As long as
record
it
button?
But it's annoying me. It's still focus peaking, so you can see like the highlights on our faces, and it's annoying me.
It's really hard for you to get in and out, but you're gonna lean. Okay. All right. There. Oh, that is
Hopefully
better.
I didn't just stop the recording. So
No,
it's
it's
good.
still good. All right. So we have
But-
a fourth.
What I was gonna say.
Excuse me.
What I was gonna say is, and we already ruined this because we got off track. Is I was like, I want you to introduce Dan,
Oh, okay.
and then because we did a bad job of introducing Patrick. I feel like it took a while.
Oh, poor
to get
Patrick. Yeah.
there.
No, it was a great job of introducing.
I was gonna like, you should introduce Dan, and then I'll introduce Dan, and then we should have Dan introduce Dan.
Okay, wait. So you introduced him, so now I'll go.
Well, I didn't get to I prepared something. It's
Okay,
a little
so
bit long.
we ruined it. You ruined it.
It's a little long. Do you have 30 minutes or no? I'm just kidding.
Okay. I mean,
So this is Dan.
You have to edit it.
He is our.
he won't.
He's our dear friend, and Picard GIF aficionado.
Oh my God, we're gonna have to share some
Yeah.
of the best ones. Okay, so I'll go. Dan is one of the reasons that most of us didn't quit the job that we all worked at together, because he was like the comic relief. You were really good about like bitching when we needed you to, being productive when we needed you to, and adding comic relief when we needed you to, via typically Picard gifts that you literally like own the domain.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say.
Are we ready for the world to know this? Can we?
Can we reveal this on the podcast?
Let's get 8 hits.
12 people will know
Yeah.
about the website.
Which I still haven't done anything with.
Yeah.
I just
I wish I had my phone. I'd pull
Is
it
it
up.
Picard? Because I have.
I think it's picardgifts.com.
What do I have?
You have one?
I have a email there that forwards to mine.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, did you
Yeah.
make him one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Spencer at picardgifts.com?
I think it's like number 2 at Picard.
Strong man.
I think it's number 2 at picardgifts.com or
Number
something
2,
like
yeah.
that.
Oh, like make it so number 2.
Yeah.
I mean, we can, say that. So look, if anybody watching wants a @picardgifts.com email address, that's fine.
I mean, I won't.
And set it up and forward to you. Yeah. So no, yeah, friends. Somebody else got one. Like my dad would really like this.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, sounds
All
good.
right.
And then I
Cool.
got it. Was like, damn, that is cool.
You know what we need? We need a Slack space. We have one that no one's using. Like my last day, we had our little like goodbye virtual happy hour. I was like, by the way, I made a Slack space so we can all keep in touch. And like I've like put a few things there, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're crazy busy
Yeah. They have jobs.
in crazy town. I have a job. I mean, kind of. All right.
So what are we drinking this evening?
But wait, does Dan
Thank
get
you.
to introduce Dan?
Dan wants to introduce the fourth guest, which is Rob,
Oh, yeah.
a new, very good friend of ours who
Yeah.
we met only a couple of weeks ago and
Yeah.
has come over probably 12 times.
Come on in, Rob. No, just kidding.
No, Rob is the drink, Rob Roy,
Yeah.
which is a Manhattan, but Scotch instead of bourbon or rye whiskey.
Can you explain to the viewers that maybe don't know the classic cocktail Manhattan, what
Yes.
all the other 2 ingredients are?
It's one of the easiest cocktails you can make in that it's bitters,
Yeah.
sweet vermouth, and rye whiskey or bourbon.
Yeah.
And it's super easy because however much vermouth you do, you double the whiskey. So
Yeah.
that's how I think I said this on a previous podcast, like making Vespers. Like I always start with the smallest ingredient because typically it's either like double or triple, from the smallest one, whatever it is you're doing. I had hesitations about Scotch years ago, because if you drink scotch like early in your professional liquor journey.
In your professional liquor journey.
Well, okay, you drink liquor in college and high school and you don't like it. You never like it.
Yeah, because it's like smoky and...
No. You never like liquor.
Oh, yeah.
I defy any 18 or 19-year-old to tell me that they like the taste of liquor. They're just drinking it. They're doing shots.
Well, because I don't think...
Or they like a margarita because it's sweet.
They'll tell you at the end of the night that how much they regretted the
exactly.
liquors.
I mean, I think it's like alcohol in general has that thing where it's like, it doesn't actually taste good.
You have to develop a palate for it.
You have to develop the palate.
That's what I mean. So early on, like in my like early mid-20s, when we were drinking cocktails when we went out, and like maybe you had wine or mimosas or whatever, like even then it's still kind of like early in that palate development. Like you don't actually like it very much. And your older brother is the type to like explore things like really good blended scotch. And I remember one time we were at your mom's house and I walked back in the kitchen after dinner and I was like stopped in my tracks. I
remember that too.
What is on fire? There's a gas
leak or something. Yeah.
Something's happening. And AJ just laughed and like shook his glass. He was like, is it this? I was like, yeah, the exhaust coming out of your glass. That's what it is.
And it was like some Lefroy, like expensive bottle of scotch. Yeah.
But I've never liked scotch.
Here's the thing that I wonder then. Do you develop a palate for these things?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Or do you make a complete mess of your pristine palate
that
eventually it like wears away?
That's what we mean by development.
That's almost a little too existential for me. Like this weekend, someone literally said to me, and I bet you know who, Spencer, how do you feel about the fact that your eyes only see 2-dimensional but perceive them as 3D? And I was like, get away from me. What are you doing? I'm drinking a mimosa on a boat. I don't need this right now. So when I saw...
Just a random quip. How do you feel about that?
No, I'm not even exaggerating. That's literally what he did. And I was like, I'm going to leave now. I can't leave the boat, but I'm going to walk over there.
Yeah.
I saw on like New York Times Cooking or something, it was like, try this classic cocktail. And I'm like... And I looked and I was like, dang, that actually sounds really good. And I've never bought scotch in my life before we decided to try these.
Well, I think it's probably, to go back to Dan's question, I think it's a combination because like your palate and like your taste do change over time, right? Mm-hmm. And like I think scientifically, like going back to the Little Debbie episode, which actually came out this past week, right? All those things tasted better to us because like biologically and like from an evolutionary standpoint.
Those are big words for a silly podcast.
Like you're designed to crave as much calorific intake as a child.
Is calorific a word?
Caloric.
There we go. Okay. I was like, that doesn't sound right.
All the big words. I ran out of...
I like calorific.
Mary Poppins one, yeah.
I ran out of big words and I had to lower
the Mary Poppins word. Okay, I'm sorry.
So like you're designed to get as much caloric intake as possible. So like high sugar content is like what you crave and it tastes better to you because like that's what your body wants.
Okay.
And so like, you know, a child wants more caloric food because they're growing. And then like as you get older, that desire for sugar or like even like naturally milks. That's why like a lot of people end up lactose intolerant because like your body isn't supposed to forever process milk. You're supposed to do that when you're a child. Like your body changes away from wanting that. So I think there is that. So like we want less super sweet stuff because like biologically we're changing as we get older.
We're already sweet enough.
Yeah. Of course. And then at the same time too, I think we do fully corrupt and destroy our taste buds. You know, like
I literally never thought about that before, but I feel like it's a very good point.
Yeah. And like, you know, it's the same thing with like coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee and like coffee does not like there are times where we make coffee every morning, right? We have, you know, again to get on the pretentious boat, like you know, we pick up beans from the local roastery. We grind them ourselves.
We don't pick them up. They're delivered to us, which is worse.
Yeah. We grind them ourselves.
Pretentious bit. Yeah. Go on.
And we...
Entitled is the word you're looking for.
And we brew espresso. Like we have an espresso machine. We make... It's not like, you know, we don't do drip coffee. We like exclusively drink espresso.
We looked for the snobbiest possible way to drink coffee every day.
And there are times where like the extractions off, because like it is a manual process. It's not like push button receive coffee. Like you have to have the grind the right density. You have to have the, you know, pressure at which you tamp it at the right, you know, all this other stuff. And like, you know, when it rains, the barometric pressure, atmospheric pressure is higher. So like you have to adjust. It's like,
and then you lose your mind.
And then I lose my fucking mind because I'm like, just fucking give me coffee.
It's really pleasant before having coffee.
And is the water that you're using, is that at room temperature? Is it
It's supposed to be cold.
It's actually supposed to be, it can be room temperature. It's ideally a certain temperature, which we ignore.
I've always heard that coffee should start with cold water.
We do ignore that part. And also like it should be like, you know, a certain mineral content and all this other stuff.
I didn't know that.
If you want to get into, like, technically tap water is not great.
We don't use tap water.
No, yeah. Some form of distilled, and the cleaner it is, the better, yeah.
And like you go to a coffee shop, a lot of time they'll have like a special filter that'll like pre-process the water. But there are times where like the extraction's off and I don't care to. Now I want to check to see if that's still going.
I don't think his feet were on
I
the
did
actual
see
buttons.
his feet touch the keyboard.
Do you want me to look?
Yeah. And don't drink my water. Come on. But what am I talking about? Coffee. There are times where like the extraction's off, as long as it's still like progressing. Yeah. The extraction's off and it tastes vile. And I'm just like, whatever. I still want it. You know, so it's like coffee doesn't, you know, coffee can taste good, but a lot of times it's like you're just like chemically dependent on it. And you could say the same thing about alcohol. You know, like that's alcoholism. You know, like you're chemically dependent on it, and that's why you want it and crave it.
Yeah, but there's also the piece of like, you know, unless the glass of wine tastes like absolute vinegar,
you're gonna finish it.
You're still gonna go,
yeah.
No, it's still a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or like when your cocktail that's like best enjoyed in a cold glass, well, it's still like crisp and cold. It's like room temperature and warm because you've been, you know, caught up in conversation or whatever, and like you're just like, this is not enjoyable, but I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah. Well, somebody gave me a beer here the other day, and I was like, just what's local? It was like all of these, and I went, okay, well, let's start there.
Do you know which one you had? Out of curiosity.
Not offhand.
Okay.
But
Just
I remember tasting it, and then the person behind the bar saying, and what about this one? I was like, not great. And then it's like, well, I can swap it out for something. I was like, no, it's still a beer.
I
still want the
glass.
pint. But then you also then don't know, what did you have before that that may be affecting the taste of the thing that you're having. Like you may make that cup of coffee the exact same way.
Yeah.
That's a good
do
point.
the exact same temperatures, everything else the next morning, but something else left over from the night before is there.
I feel like that's been happening to me a lot actually recently. And like, you know, I'll get home from the gym or whatever and I'll eat the exact same thing. Cause like I'm a type of person, and I don't know if we've talked about this too much of a degree here, but like, especially when you're out of town, like you were this past
We have
week,
talked about that. Yeah.
I will eat the same thing every day. Like there's no like, oh, what do I want to eat today? I think I'll try this. It's like, okay, bread with, you know, whatever on it. You know, I'll have this piece of toast for breakfast with this plain yogurt.
Didn't you have like 8 pieces of bread the other day? Because you just kept eating different sandwiches
for every
but
meal.
you didn't realize it till it was over.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
You know, and I'll have rice and chicken every day.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
All
these are like the thin sliced, like really healthy bread.
Yeah.
I'm like lasagna. I made a giant thing of lasagna. Okay, I guess I'm having lasagna for 4 days.
Yeah, and
that's perfectly fine.
And like, you know, especially more so before, like a year ago when I was like tracking my macros and like, you know, being more diligent about what I was eating, like I would come up with the formula. This is what I need to eat from like a macronutrient perspective to get my carbs and protein and fats and whatever. And I'm like, I'm just going to eat the exact same thing every day because otherwise it's another thing I have to think about, you know?
Right.
So I'll be like formulaic, but I feel like recently in the past month even, I'll be eating the same thing. I'll be like, this tastes different than it did yesterday. And I don't know if it's like a chemical thing.
Your palate's developing.
Yeah.
Overnight.
It's all the cocktails I've been drinking at night that are continuing to
this
destroy
could have
my
more
palate.
scotch in it.
Yeah. I'm just not getting the alcohol notes I want from this.
Okay,
That's
so
it, yeah. Maybe you need to make the changes to the booze you have the night before. It's like coffee's different today.
Yeah,
okay,
see what it is. Maybe it's because I had bourbon
you
that
mix
night
up the
instead of
cocktails.
gin. Yeah.
Okay, a Rob Roy the night before goes with
Coffee
this
is
coffee
good.
at this time in the morning.
That's
we
like
should start tracking this.
some fucked up ratatouille shit. Yeah.
Just before you go to bed. And then
Spencer, why are you drinking so many cocktails lately? Well, when I
my
found the
scrambled
perfect
eggs taste better tomorrow.
I found the perfect pairing for my breakfast and my coffee.
Damn it, I had 3 Rob Roys last night. I need to have a slice of prosciutto before I fall asleep.
Yeah.
So you're Irish.
Yep.
Are you allowed to drink scotch?
Yeah.
Is there like a rivalry there, or do like the Irish and the Scots actually like each other because you both got like taken over by England at some point?
That's probably the way to put it.
So like, are you guys friendly, or are you like you guys?
Yeah, I mean,
you guys are sellouts. You're part of the UK. We're not.
I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot barge pole. No, there's still there's the Gaelic, there's that aspect of things, and you know.
Wait, what's the Gaelic thing?
Celtic, I guess.
Oh, Celtic.
Celtic thing.
Now I'm like, my mind is racing. Like, wait, what's Gaelic? What's Celtic? Celtic's
Oh, I thought you said Gaelic. No,
Shut up.
I'll get canceled
Ignore
for
him.
that
Ignore
one.
him.
So what do you? Okay, so like the Scots are okay. What do you think about the Welsh?
That's a good question. God, I wish Laura was here.
Yeah, because.
You don't have to answer any
No,
of these questions, by the way.
No, true. Love, because there's a whole thing of, you know, anything but the Brits sort of mentality.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There is that, or the English sort of mentality. There is that's kind of there. But yeah, most recently, I guess there's, you know, most of it kind of comes up in sporting contexts.
Okay.
Of how do you feel about the Welsh and the...
You see that raccoon?
No.
On top of the fence.
I can't see it.
I'm sorry, Welsh. I'm the worst with the animal outside distractions. The Welsh, you were saying.
Oh,
sports.
I thought you were telling me that the raccoon was Welsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has that very distinct accent.
Yeah, I can't do a Welsh accent.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, I can. There's a few phrases in that, but it takes a while to switch the brain around to.
And it's more than an accent. It's like they have like a language still.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What is the language? I can't remember.
Welsh.
Oh, it's Welsh. I've heard people speak it.
Yeah.
And it's weird.
I know this because of the Crown.
Yeah.
It's definitely
There's
unique.
like a lispy thing to it.
Well, there's also, you know, there's entire words without any vowels and lots of Y's and that
well, that's
sort of
I
thing.
mean, to some degree true with like Irish names. It'll be like consonant, 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 one vowel, and you're like, aha.
Yeah.
Explain the name
But
Tig to
even-
me. Spell it.
Which spelling?
We'll just leave that there. That's enough. That's a sufficient explanation.
Yeah, because then there's 4 different spellings of Maeve, for example.
I love that name.
That sort of thing.
It's a cool name.
You know,
Wait, so what about maybe an even better question than how do you feel about the Welsh?
I'm going to get in trouble in this podcast.
You are going to. Okay, but wait. We'll pivot and we'll pivot.
We'll
and
just I'm going to put a disclaimer at the bottom. It's right here, right now, flashing on the screen that says like, Dan's opinions do not reflect those of the Irish people. He's
okay, but listen. Here's the trade-off. You can ask us
my own,
equal questions about the United States because, like, we're regional too, right? So we have things to say about people who live in Florida and Omaha, Nebraska, and California.
Yeah, but then even when you look at Florida's and California's, and that's like 4 times the population of Ireland in those states.
True. If people were to ask me, like, what's the population of Ireland or New York City or whatever, I'd be like, oh, I don't know. I'm really bad with numbers in that sense. I'd be like, 1 million. And they're like...
And how far away are they from you?
50 feet.
How far away am I from you right now, Shem?
Okay, wait, I don't want to forget my question. So
that's a very Irish thing, though, as well. So we've got... what is it? There's a very Irish way of putting it. I'm going to get completely tongue-tied on this now, but was something my dad used to say, which was Irish people have a very weird way of describing distance, but when they mean time, and time when they mean distance.
Okay.
So like
Interesting.
How far is it to downtown Dallas?
Oh, and you're like, oh, it's like 10
it's
minutes.
about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But the question is, how far is
Yeah.
What's the distance?
But we
and how
answer
long?
in time.
Yeah.
I know there's a few places that I think it's becoming more common to do it.
Yeah.
But I remember it was one thing my dad used to say about he moved to Ireland and that, and would say like, Irish people are very strange. They don't say what they mean, but they also, it's kind of dancing around the question.
Right. Do you also like do the other way? Like, what's an example of like, how, talking about like how long until you, go back to Ireland, and you're like, oh, like it's a few miles away. Like, is there like
yeah, how long? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's another way of twisting that. It's like 6.
Yeah.
6 what?
I'll be back there in 6. Okay. Cool. So what was your question?
Sorry.
I want to put a pin in what you just said because it reminds me of something funny that happened at the event this weekend. All right. We know how you feel about the English. Most people know how the Irish feel about the English.
Yeah.
It's more intense. I have a few Irish friends.
Okay, wait,
It's more intense with some.
I want to interject here because I know you're trying to ask your question.
No
too.
surprise that you're going to cut off my either story or question midway through.
Still don't understand this as a dumb American.
No, let's not pause. I know what you're going to say, and
Okay.
I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
Trust me. How do you feel about people who live in Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK? Is that the question?
No.
Really?
No.
The UK includes Northern Ireland, so I'm really curious about.
I was going to ask from.
Dan's like, I need to. I just remembered.
I'll just give you an exit to that question if you want to. We can segue.
Rude.
I'll put like the idiot card on me. Shannon said.
Was it on me?
No. I'm just saying like.
You emphasized me.
Shannon asked like, we know how you feel, or she said we know how you feel about the English. When would you say the British?
Oh, I don't think that's a dumb question. I've actually asked English people that question, and even they're like, sometimes it's Britain, Great Britain, England. They don't even seem to have an answer to this.
Well,
and it's not quite the same as saying United States and America, because you can say English and you can say British. You just say American.
Well, British includes Scotland. Well, like Britain is.
Is Britain equal to United Kingdom?
There's something I can't remember what it is. Great Britain is different to United Kingdom in one, but I can't remember exactly.
But then
England is part of Great Britain, and Great Britain's part of the United Kingdom.
And then there's a UK flag.
We're just gonna put it up on the screen when we figure it out.
But there's an English flag, the like white with the red.
Yeah, that's the Red Cross.
Is there a British flag too?
That's the
British flag.
The British flag is not there. I don't think there's a flag
English
for the United Kingdom. But
there is.
It's
or Great.
That's the British flag. Yeah, Great Britain.
And all of those places are in London, right? No.
Yes.
There's nothing outside of London.
I'm badly treading on.
Well, I mean, imagine the conversation flipping though. You could start asking us questions, and we're like, I don't know what the flag for Montana looks like. There's so many. It's like so regional. There's so many like rules and labels and things. Like I don't know.
I suppose is it a similar context of North versus South here, but it's not really because it was a whole other nation conquered. But look, I mean, they had the whole Great British Empire, which was extended everywhere.
All right, I have an idea.
We're gonna have to just get this fruit.
We're just gonna get off the.
Yeah, we can get off the history.
UK politics. You caught the fly.
You can edit this out.
No,
you can
you
edit
didn't.
all this out. No, I went off
I
that
felt
way.
it for a second. That was like
I thought she was like just
our
Mr.
friend
Miyagi
Anthony
thing.
that we work with. He can. It's insane.
Yeah.
He's proven it multiple times. He can
know,
catch a fly.
Do you know how he does that? It's a magic trick.
No, it's not.
He keeps
a fly.
Shut up. That is gross.
He keeps a bunch of dead flies in his pocket, and he pretends like he does.
That is disgusting. Could you imagine?
Just in case. I mean, I do
Horrific.
it. Look. See? No, just kidding. I should have been like, wait, I do it.
I have something I've been holding. Okay, fuck you. Okay, I traveled this weekend.
Okay.
I'm on the plane coming home last night. Sat on the runway for so long that I ate up an entire episode of Succession, and I downloaded 3. I'm like, it's a 3-hour flight. It'll be perfect. Delayed for an hour. I'm like, fuck. Anyway, as I'm sitting there, realizing we're still on the runway in Tahoe, Reno, whatever, I'm like, I just remembered about 15 things I didn't cover in the travel episode. I'm not going to bring them all up, but I had a moment where I was like, how could I forget this one? Maybe my least favorite thing that people do on planes. Any guesses?
I mean, you sure you want to do this now?
I want to get this one thing off my chest.
You want to save it for the part 2? That's what.
No, because that episode, I'm just like, all right, you guys bitched for an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah, exactly. It's just one thing.
Right.
Okay, just one thing. We won't go.
But did you cover the shoes off thing?
No, but a guy's shoe hit me in the head. I just remembered. So, okay, I'm on this flight, and we're sitting there for a really long time, and they're finally like, you hear the captain, well, folks, and you're like, fuck.
We're a little bit delayed here. We should be setting off any minute now.
We have a weight issue with the plane. We need 9 people to volunteer to take the 1 a.m. flight. It's a 2:30 flight that we're on.
How does that? Were there
bags.
Just like a lot of?
I think it's bags. And
it's because you had 3 checked bags filled with camera
I only
equipment?
had 2, and one of them was really light, and the other one was a little bit heavy. But enough people checked heavy baggage and like golf clubs.
Yeah. Okay.
Coming out of Tahoe's a big like golf area.
So it wasn't an overbooking thing. It was like literally too many strongmen on the plane.
Yeah, I mean, basically the equivalent. But it was funny. Yeah. I saw they're like, we're gonna pay $1,100. I see this guy get off with his like 5-year-old, and people are counting, and they count the 5-year-old. I was like,
that doesn't work. I imagine like being.
He's not getting $1,100.
I'm on that plane right now, and they're like, we're offering $1,100 to, we're at overweight capacity. We need 9 people. Or if you leave, we can do just 7. Everybody's like looking at me like.
Actually, no. You should have been like, you know what? If you pay me double, pay me for 2 people, and I'll get off the plane right now.
2 people, I get off. Yeah.
Okay,
round up to an even 2,500.
Everyone's having that internal struggle, or like talking to their friend that they're flying with, like, do you want to? Blah, blah. And again, this is a 2:30 flight. The next flight is at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
It's a really tough. Like that's a long time to wait. All these things, and the guy across the aisle from me decides to volunteer, and he gets up and he's getting his bags down, and I'm like watching Succession, and something hits me in the head. And of course this lady goes, I'm so sorry, it wasn't me though, it was him. Like fully like pointing. He has these like military boots, like the laces were like tied to his backpack.
Oh, he's got.
So they're just like flailing around and full. He like basically kicked me in the head, and I was so annoyed. I just like let it go immediately.
I have to know what happens with Roman.
Oddly enough, that's not the thing that really makes me mad on planes.
Not when you get kicked in the head.
Getting hit with a rogue shoe, not the thing.
It's not when like the girl in front of you like pushes her hair over the seat back, so it's hanging in front of yours.
No, that's actually never happened to me. No, it's when the person behind you is incapable of getting up without fully utilizing your seat, and the people behind me were the type that just kept at it for so long that I finally leaned forward and looked back and was like, tell me when you're done, and I'll it was insane. But I had this full-on moment where I was like, how did we not talk about that?
Yeah, that is definitely infuriating, just the pulling and the things.
But then sometimes you look back and it's like a little like old man, and you're like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
I'd rather you tell me and I'll get up and like literally physically help you versus just you pulling on my chair. Help. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you got that out of the way.
I feel better. Yeah.
Good. I've got one that's a total segue as well. But it also does relate to the palate developing conversation.
Interesting. Okay.
I watched a childhood classic movie.
While I was gone?
While you were gone. Street Fighter the movie.
Okay, I always think it's Mortal Kombat.
92, 94.
I think it was like 93, 94. Yeah.
And I was going to say, if it's 93, it's
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
Is he the Muscles from Brussels?
Yeah.
Is that him?
Yeah.
That's his nickname?
You just wanted to say that. You knew that.
Well, there are times where I'm like, Arnold? No, yeah. Arnold is
Austrian, yeah.
Does he have a nickname?
I'm sure he did it, but
Arnold.
But he just became Arnold.
One of those people. He's just like one name.
He only needs the one name. I'm sorry. Anyway.
The Britney, the Pele.
Yeah.
Whoever.
Yeah.
Just Arnold. And I think actually, conveniently, our sponsor this week is Netflix, and they have got a new show called Arnold coming out.
Really?
Yeah, I just
like
watched,
a documentary or a show?
I think so. I think
he's the new chief action officer.
Yeah, he did some show, the FUBAR or whatever, and he's
according to an advert I saw yesterday on television.
What's up with the but no, I think it's a documentary that they're coming out with.
Okay.
But he's also in some show. Anyway, we're not really sponsored by Netflix. That was a lie. Sorry.
We don't have any sponsors or people.
Or viewers. But
I was about to say, well, it's because I'm here.
Yeah.
We're recording, so I can still watch it later.
Yeah. But yeah, so I watched Street Fighter because to date this episode, Street Fighter 6 came out this past week.
I'm sorry. I need more context. Street Fighter 6, the game?
The game.
Okay, I was like, are there 5 Street Fighter movies that I just don't know about?
Well, there's a lot, and there's a lot that were like animated.
Sure.
This was like the live action one.
Right.
Street Fighter 6 came out.
The big one was Street Fighter 2 as well.
Yeah, Street Fighter 2 was like Super Nintendo, old school.
That was the big game.
Oh, I love Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
God, I wish I still had mine.
And you can actually play Street Fighter 2 in Street Fighter 6. Like you can go up to a console in the game and like it pulls up Street Fighter 2. It's pretty cool. But because, everybody's talking about it and, I was chatting with some people about it and I was like, man, I want to watch Street Fighter the movie. And it is as terrible and good as you remember it.
Did you sit and like watch it?
No, I was.
Or did you were like playing games and you put it on?
I was at the gym and I put it on.
Oh, okay.
But I did like stop and watch it quite a few times.
Mm-hmm. As you do.
Yeah, and when you're at the gym for 2 hours, you need a movie to watch. And
so many subtle flexes in the last 30 seconds.
No, when you're doing that was actually a subtle like. Opposite of a flex where I'm like, it takes me 2 hours to do a normal fucking workout and like 30 minutes of rest between everything.
You're still learning how to use the equipment.
Yeah. It takes a long time to get used to it. And you got to put on something like Street Fighter to get you pumped.
We already went through Rocky and Rambo.
Yeah.
And The Mummy.
And, but that movie is like, and like we were talking about this earlier, Shannon can't remember if she's seen it before.
Because again, every time you say Street Fighter,
you think Mortal Kombat.
Picture in my head Mortal Kombat, and then I realize that I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen Street Fighter. But then if we put it on right now,
you might remember.
I'd probably be like, yeah, I've seen this movie.
Mortal Kombat, also same era. They made movies with like
decent
KMFDM soundtrack.
I don't remember them being bad.
Comparatively,
I agree with you.
Street Fighter, you go, it does what it says on the tin sort of thing.
And this is what I was going to say about Street Fighter watching it. And I'm not caught up on the Street Fighter lore. Like, I don't really know my memory of it is like what I made up for it when I was in grade school and playing Street Fighter 2 and stuff, where I'm like, Ken and Ryu are best buddies and they're...
No, I thought they hated each other.
I don't know.
The whole thing?
See, I don't know.
Well, that's what I thought that there was something, and then... I don't know.
Yeah, and so like you've got the lore
in the middle of it, and I don't know.
You've got the lore that you made up, and you don't necessarily know if it's true, or what is just like stuff that you and your brothers are what made up while you're playing the game, or what comes from something. But like, almost caught it. But the one thing about that movie is like, and I think it's just like the early era of like. Video game movies and superhero movies even weren't like becoming a thing yet. And so like, it's like they felt the need to explain everything in the real world. And so they're like, Chun-Li's a reporter that her father was killed in a raid by M. Bison and now she wants revenge. And M. Bison doesn't have powers. He does this speech about like, oh, I can levitate because my boots are charged by the same electromagnetic technology that bullet trains use in Japan. And I'm just like, just embrace the fact that it's like supernatural. But and that's what Mortal Kombat did better is that it's just like...
They didn't go into it.
Yeah.
It's just, this has been going on for thousands of years or something.
Anything like that. Yeah.
Battle for the world.
That reminds me of, I'm going to say it. I'm going to bring it up officially. It's going to happen.
God.
I can't wait to know what this is.
That reminds me of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh, JoJo, okay.
Do you know this?
No.
It's an anime.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm outing myself as someone who has watched quite a few episodes of an anime
Quite
show.
a few, almost all of them.
It doesn't ring a bell. Whatever it was when you said that, my brain immediately went to Buckaroo Banzai. But go on.
And Buckaroo, yeah, that's not an anime, but
Sorry, I'm like laughing, so I'm like tearing
old
up.
school. She's like, the shame is pouring out shame.
But they it's a big vibe. They over-explain sometimes.
Yeah.
Like things will be happening and like you're following, but I think it's like a translation thing maybe.
It's like
I don't
a
know what it is,
cultural
but they'll-
thing, and like because it's like derived from a manga. And actually, I'm wearing my Dragon Ball shirt today, so it's funny.
Yeah, in a minute I want an explanation of this because you're very excited about that shirt, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
It's derived from like a comic book, essentially, right? So like
When you say manga, that's what you mean?
Yeah, it's like the written version of it that's illustrated. It's like a comic book. And so like
Never heard the term, so I don't know.
So I don't really know who Kakyoin is or anything like that. So
He's turned me into a nerd.
Yeah,
I didn't use
100%. No, you've always been a nerd. You just denied it. So it's derived from a comic book. So like that would be the style. Like when you have, still images to explain what's happening, they would explain it all in detail. And they're trying to like capture that same source material.
Yeah, but can we not just say it's bad writing?
I mean, I think it's
I
bad
think for
adaptation.
The TV show, I think for the TV show
That's
version,
what I mean.
100%.
Not
Yeah,
for
yeah.
anything else. But when you're making the
Yeah.
film, if at any point in time, because like I hate those bits of like in the film, you've been watching it for an hour and 45 minutes.
Go boy.
It's getting to the end, and then we need to have that pause scene where it's like, "Hey, wow,
We didn't actually explain
It's a
any
good
of
thing
this,
we
so-
had this
Well, so-
backstory, and if it wasn't, you're kind of going, I'm like, I've been watching this thing.
Yeah.
If I don't get it at this point in time
Right.
when you're explaining
Right.
it, that's your fault for bad writing. So if you had to then, sometimes I think it's to do with they did that early screening.
Mm-hmm.
They did the feedback bits, and people go,
Yeah.
I was kind of confused
I
there.
don't really get
and
it.
then, and
right.
then,
All right.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
they
Cut
go,
in,
well, let's add in this scene. It's like, no, go back
Yeah.
and
I will
wait.
Fix it.
but really quick, I'll defend JoJo's Bizarre Adventure
Well, I want to do the same. So you
by
go ahead.
just saying that some of the stuff that happens in that show is so batshit crazy that like no matter what you do, you couldn't explain.
No, and this is exactly
But-
what I mean. So like something will be happening, and you are following. Like I don't feel like you're ever 100% like I'm lost. It's more so that they're trying to make something make sense to the point where you're like, okay. And they're not confused or lost. You feel like you're missing information. You're more just like, sure. And then the narrator is like talking and he's like, and so this happened because actually this the whole time. And then a character will explain and he'll stop and like we joke about like, however,
Yeah.
or I don't even know, like,
But I think that's also like the style again.
therefore,
and
this
that-
happened. And you're
and
like,
that's
okay.
like that's like coming from and like I don't think any of those things were necessarily like because I've never read the source material, but I think it also comes from like the comic quality of things.
Yeah.
Where like we're watching a fight between two characters happen over an episode. In reality, it was released over like different publications where that were released like a week apart. And so like that's where the back and forth comes from, where they like go back and explain it because it's like you think he's losing and then cliffhanger week later, oh wait, he's winning. And so like they're kind of like explaining what the exchange is that's happening.
some of it's probably trying to, well, in some cases, I think is trying to keep loyalty to the source material that it came from and the fans. And then I think that's where some franchises or remakes or whatever kind of fall apart. Where
like
they
Street Fighter the movie.
where they try and squeeze too much in to keep the loyal fans together, but then it just loses any coherence. Like the original Dune. Like when you go back and you watch it,
the original Dune is so painful.
It tries to squeeze the entire book and everything into this.
Do you think that they felt like they needed to back when that was made versus now they're like, how do we stretch The Hobbit into
that's
two
a really
and a
good
half
example.
hour movies?
Some of it's just budget. Like
that's good. That's a fair point.
Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, the cartoon in whatever it was, 79.
I never watched those, but I kind of watched
really
it.
good. Was really good up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And you can, you know, if you know the story, it was sort of like they were fighting for budget and they were trying to get more and everything else. And you can almost spot like the moment in time you go, and now they're out of money.
I think it was something. Yeah.
And as much as they were fighting
we
for
had
it,
some
it
of
was
those experiences. I think.
you can see it, and I think maybe that was some of.
I think it was something like Dune, though, movies. Like David Lynch's Dune. There was no like, it's like kind of a weird off the wall, movie. Like it's super artistic and it's David Lynch and all this other stuff.
I hated it.
And so like people are like, I think at the time in a production sense, they're like, there's a good chance that if we make part 1, we'll never make part 2. So we've got to get the whole book into one
whole
movie.
Thing in there.
Which, but like, I want to push back on that though, because I feel like that is going to ruin your chances of making a good part 1.
Also, like being loyal to the source material, like the whole like weird space martial arts thing with shooting the lasers with the weirding way that they did. With,
so bad.
They like kind of bastardized it trying to be.
It was also kind of a thing, I guess, as well. And during the 80s, and move the Lynch piece aside and everything else, there were so many films, I guess, trying to cash in on the Star Wars aspect and everything else during the 80s of like, okay, like we're doing a sci-fi and we're doing
let's do James Bond in space. It's like,
I think Moonraker, they were gonna shoot a different movie. Star Wars came out and they're like, let's do Moonraker because we can do lasers.
Dan, do you remember in Moonraker when they were like in anti-gravity? It's just
slow motion.
It's just the actors faking
moving super slow. And I'm like, you can still move at the same speed.
But it's funny though, because then there's scenes where they like crash and everybody falls and you can tell they just sped up the tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they fell carefully, or it was like reverse, like in Home Alone with the van.
Yeah.
But the gravity scenes, they're like, oh, just go really slowly.
Just go slow, because we can't slow it down, because something in the background could do things. But it was, it's the same thing. We've taken it back to Picard. He was just, okay, right, we're under attack.
Yeah.
So they were still doing that. Like, you shake the camera, I'll move left, and do all that stuff.
What
all
else
of them
did David
diving
Lynch
onto
do?
the ground when they,
Mulholland Drive.
I never saw that.
I'm worried of embarrassing myself by confusing him with somebody else. Is he the Twin Peaks guy?
Yes, because that's where Kyle MacLachlan.
Did we air the episode? No, we haven't yet. Dan, episode 1, we are like committed.
He also used to do a weather show. Sorry.
No, it's okay. No.
In the early days of the internet, you could tune into David Lynch's weather report, and some days it would just be like a minute long, and he would just be just like,
he should just still be doing that. Rain again.
It's raining. And some days he would just go off on some sort of soliloquy of words and everything else, and it could be bizarre. But a friend of mine used to say, anyway, sorry.
Dan agrees with me that you associate the Alien Resurrection movie with basketball.
Yeah.
Just so you know, we've spoken
it's the
about
basketball one.
It's the basketball one, and it's ridiculous that it's the basketball one, but you just know.
I can't remember, and now like it's so long ago, and also like we've talked about it on and off stream. I'm in Twitch land. On and off podcast.
By the way, subscribe to.
I've been streaming on Twitch if you want to play some games.
No, we agreed.
Twitch.tv/Hegmo. I'll put it down below because it's not an English word.
I love how you can phrase, talking to your wife in real life.
Yeah.
But it's on and off podcast.
Yeah, exactly. the podcast that we show that 8 people watch.
And sometimes it's off podcast. We refer to it as, should we have an off podcast evening?
Yeah.
Yes.
We went out to dinner off podcast the other night.
So Sigourney Weaver, it's not CGI. It's not any kind of practical effect. She grabbed the basketball, threw it behind her. It was one take.
Yeah. She made it.
Ron Perlman, isn't it Ron Perlman? His reaction was like what the fuck just happened? Yeah. Like totally authentic.
Yeah.
Like it was, and even she was like, she walked off real cool, and then she turned around and was like,
"You're kidding me, right? Right.
Yeah.
And like she's in shape, and I don't know that she would call herself like athletic. She's probably like, I've thrown a basketball through a hoop.
In that era, she was like,
but like maybe she wasn't like a basketball player, and that was just like incredibly lucky.
It was mid-90s, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it was mid-90s. Yeah.
Tripe of a film, but.
It's so bad. So terrible. So in our very first, I guess it was episode 2 where we officially went through the movie bracket. We were talking with such high confidence We're like, oh, it's Danny Trejo in Iron Man 3.
No, I was shouting at you the way. I was like, I was one of the ones.
We watched it back and we were like, we're so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
He goes, that was Mickey Rourke. And then I was shouting at
Mickey.
No, I make it even worse, Dan, because I'm like, did you know he's the voice of Copper in The Fox and the Hound? He goes, really? And I'm like, maybe not. And I looked it up and it's like Mickey Rooney.
Yeah.
So we're like all over the place, like just complete morons.
Yeah.
You mentioned, we were talking about the movie bracket and you made a good point.
This isn't about being factual. It's just about
obviously not
spewing information.
Being critical, not factual.
Yeah.
I was with, clients and people this weekend, and I was like, you really should come on the podcast. You are like exceptionally critical. And he was like, discerning. I was like, we can't call the podcast hyper discerning.
Appropriately discerning.
Okay, that's what we're going to call the episode that he does this, because we're going to get him on one day.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
I'm glad it's being recorded because I would instantly forget that.
Yeah, that was really good. He's going to love that too. But Dan and I were talking about the movie bracket episode and how like most of the movies were trilogies.
Yeah.
So it kind of, I feel a little bit justified when Indiana Jones is up against, I can't remember what we were fighting over. What was it up against?
My long-lasting recollection of it is like Shannon was wrong a lot in that episode.
Ouch.
And I think I remember sending messages going,
yeah,
it's too late now. No,
that's like too like when, like I went on some tangent earlier this episode about like biological changes and sugar intake, and I'm like, there's somebody watching that's like
wrong.
He's just saying stuff.
Shut this account down for spreading misinformation
based on anything.
But we're okay as of this month, I think, for misinformation and stuff on YouTube. Well, it certainly is, as long as we bring up the election.
Oh, okay.
Because YouTube have changed their policies in that way. So this is about the upcoming elections. That way, then they're not going to.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Block it because they're changing their misinformation filters.
Oh, good to know.
In advance,
but
on that depressing
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones
as a trilogy.
Okay.
OG 1, 2, 3. Ignore Crystal Skull. But now they've gone and announced a fifth one.
All right, but then if you go back, then you've got
Lord of the Rings, not including The Hobbit.
Hold on. I want to ask, because it was included on that list, what does that mean about Star Trek? What's the Star Trek trilogy?
Well, so this is what I was trying to remember was it the franchise?
Yeah, I think it's the franchise.
Which is why he wouldn't let me get away with removing some that I didn't like.
Yeah, which that's why Shannon was wrong a lot.
That's why I was wrong?
But I think and sometimes the cover of what was being shown almost made it confusing.
Right.
That was all him. I didn't do that.
So but even if you put Lord of the Rings in and included The Hobbit, which never should have happened. I said it in 2004. It was wrong then. It was wrong when they made it. It was everything else. I said they're going to fuck it up. They did. But anyway, Lord of the Rings still wouldn't be
agreed
top of the...
I lost a friend because of that episode. He's like, how dare you choose Star Wars over James Bond? I'm like, well... Yeah,
in terms of the franchise... I agree with your friend. I'd have kind of gone, right, James Bond over.
I feel like more people love Star Wars than people, like there's a lot of people who are like, I hate James Bond. It's so cheesy. It's so misogynistic, blah, 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 blah. But there's very few people who are like, I feel offended by and annoyed by Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I kind of took it as like.
I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think
for what he did in the early 2000s, like you offended me.
I want to say that, like,
and the rest of us.
That's fair. Prequels offended everyone.
I think that it's cool and nerdy to hate Star Wars, though. You know what I mean? Like,
you think it's cool and nerdy to hate Star Wars?
Like there's a certain level of, and like this is when you get into like the definitions of nerds and stuff. But like you can be like a geeky person that likes Star Wars.
I want to hear you two talk about the definition of nerds.
Right. And then like the real nerds hate Star Wars because they ruined it. Right. You know what I mean? Like
ruined what? It wasn't a book.
No, but like the concept of it. You know what I mean? Like that the real nerds hate the sequels because they like, you know, it's people like me who when the first sequel movie came out, when A Force Awakens came out, you're like, okay, I'm taking it face value. This could be really interesting.
That was a good movie.
I wrote the following 2 movies in my head in the next few days, and then they didn't follow my plot. And so it was just, I was setting myself up to be disappointed.
This is like Game of Thrones.
Same thing with Game of Thrones, where we were so obsessed and nerding out about Game of Thrones. We're like, all right, what if Jon Snow does this and then Daenerys does
Worldwide,
this?
everyone agrees they did not nail the ending of Game of Thrones, though.
All this shit's going to happen. And then you watch it and you're like, we had all these theories about like,
we had really good
and
theories.
Like, it's like Bran is the Night King. He wargs back in time. He goes back in time. He does something.
Did you just say wargs?
Yeah. He does his like, what's it? The old three-eyed raven thing. Back into the past somehow, because like they had all shown all this evidence of he could interact with the past in some way.
He was making the Mad King mad,
and he wargs into somebody.
I remember those theories.
He wargs into somebody to stop them from doing something, thinking he'll fix it. He gets stuck and becomes the Night King to stop himself. And we're like, this is going to be awesome. It's going to happen. And they're like, oh no, the Night King died. That's it.
Arya killed him. That was it.
Yeah. But
they did not nail it.
Yeah.
But you were right in that same way of like, you were writing the next 2 Star Wars films and everything else. After, when they released Force Awakens, everybody's super excited.
Yeah.
I'm a curmudgeon, so I'm watching it kind of going...
Because you're a nerd.
It was more... So when somebody said to me, it was like, what did you think? I was like, it was fine. It stuck to this plot. It just modernized it and did these things, but we've seen that, we've seen this, so it was safe.
It was very formulaic, and that was following...
Exactly, following the thing that they know, and we keep seeing it. So somebody had kind of said, so like, are you excited for, the next 2, given the potential for this? And I went, listen, we've just got back with our ex. It's the first week, and it looks like it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Let's not scare it off.
Yeah. There's a high chance this is going to be a shit show and we shouldn't have got back together.
Yeah. Right.
And that's kind of how I feel.
That's brilliant.
That
Exactly
it went.
Yeah.
So I have a question about George Lucas.
Okay. I can answer this question.
Ever since...
I have confidence that I know the answer to this.
Ever since I was old enough to understand not only what Star Wars, the movie series, was, but that it started with 4... I've been confused.
Yeah.
So here's my question. 1, I have 2 questions. I have a 2-part question. 1, why the fuck would you start with 4? 2, was he so smart that he was like, I'm going to start in the middle.
Yeah.
And in a couple decades, I'm going to do some more that goes back. And then a couple decades after that, I'm going to do the next part of the story. Or was it literally just like, I'm just going to start with 4 and see what happens? It seems like a weird strategy.
Okay, so... I know a lot about this.
Oh, Jesus. I did not mean to open this can of worms, but here we go.
I think that there is an element of not precognition, because I don't think he was like, we're going to release prequels later on.
Sorry, really quick.
Yeah.
Precognition?
Yeah.
What am I thinking of? Precogs.
The thing, precogs. That's
it's
Blade
like
Runner.
A book or something.
No, it's not Blade Runner.
Minority Report?
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Carry on.
So the precogs, no, but
Tom Cruise.
Will Smith.
And George Lucas is part of the Church of Scientology. No,
okay. All right. The podcast episode is now complete.
There are scripts, and you can find them online, of what would have been episode 5 before they rewrote it. And so it's like, Luke and Leia go and confront Darth Vader, defeat him, and go off their separate ways and all this other stuff, In
one movie.
Yeah. And it's just like, that kind of stuff. Luke is not Darth Vader. And sorry, spoilers, we'll put spoiler warning up on the thing. Luke is not, Darth Vader's son. They're not siblings. Sorry, Dan. If you haven't seen the movies.
Oh, next thing you're going to tell me the Titanic sinks.
Yeah. And like all of a sudden, it's like, he had an idea for where that story would go that was not everything it became, even to the next movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, because he stole it from whatever Japanese.
And there are,
oh my
samurai
God, you
story.
told me about this. This is crazy.
It's like, the C-3PO and R2-D2 are like perfect, like parallels to whatever Kurosawa film or whatever it is. So like, yeah, he's borrowing stuff just like everybody borrows from anything else. It's very heavily influenced by the Ring cycle, which Lord of the Rings also borrows from, all this other stuff. Are you ready for this?
You've told me, and I'm just thinking about the poor guy that actually wrote all these.
Yeah. Well, it's like a, older, like...
He's old,
epic.
It doesn't matter.
No, it's not like he was alive in the 60s. It's like an epic tale from, his story. This is a religious one. Wasn't that like a Jesus movement for a while? Domine requiem.
Oh my
Slap.
One of the best movies of all time.
But no, so like he didn't have a plan for it, and I honestly think, and I'm not gonna.
So he thought he was making one movie.
No, I think that he had intentions to make it into like a thing. And like, I will say that like, I've never seen it, but whatever it is, like THX 188 or whatever his like early movie was, like he was talented, is likely still talented, like very creative, was a great writer, all this other stuff. But like in my opinion, and from what I gather, like just totally got sucked into, okay, we're going to make a toy line. We're going to make millions of dollars. We're going to push this out. We're going to make prequels, sequels.
I've always wondered about that narrative.
Stuff. And like, it just became, once you got to the episode 1, 2, and 3, he was just like, let's sell more toys. That's where I made all my money and I want to make more.
I was just going to say, he's been kind of villainized because of the whole era where that was when he sold to Disney, right? Or was that later?
That was also,
I think it was
the reason why Disney were able to buy it then, because of all the toys and because of...
Right.
But that's interesting because when you hear people talk about, thank you, God, when you hear people talk about the purchase of the Star Wars franchise and IP and everything by Disney, when you think about George Lucas, it feels very like you sold out. You just want to sell action figures and lunchboxes, right? And cookie cutters to Williams-Sonoma.
Yeah, but we have some of those.
We actually we have those. When you look at the other side of it, which is
that he'd already done that anyway.
No, the purchase side. When you look at the Disney side and the CEO. I'm suddenly waffling on it's Bob Iger.
Iger, yeah.
Is it Iger?
Yeah. It is
him being
again,
brilliant and an amazing CEO, which everything I've read indicates that he is. But I just find it really interesting that it's the same story, brilliance, sellout. It's like, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me.
I will say though that like I think that's where the episode 4 thing comes in. That's just like fantastic like world building marketing where you're like, I'm going to release the first movie in the series. It's not a book that anybody's read. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows about it. I'm calling it the 4th installment. Everybody's like, what the fuck? I have to know.
Was it billed as Star? It wasn't. Okay, so when?
Not until later. I think the initial release was just Star Wars. And then like by Empire Strikes Back, it was like, oh, this is episode 4 and 5. I think it happened later.
Still there, but the whole reason for it was a typo.
Oh, was it really?
No, I'm just messing.
Oh my God, Dan!
I should have paused longer and just
I have to say though, the prequels.
But somebody had said like, he wanted to do it and he didn't have the money to make this whole back. I was like, look, there's too much faffing about with whatever conspiracy.
I think it was.
Spencer, there's a beauty in some of the slang of the Irish.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, English.
It's an English word.
It is an English. Faffing about.
Yeah.
You can't like Americans suck.
I own that too. Nofaffin.com.
No, you don't.
Yeah, well, that's insane.
Nofaffin.com. Faffin.com.
I am without the G, since about 2008.
What other domains do you have? Come on. What's the best one you have?
PicardGifts.com.
It's got to be PicardGifts.com.
PicardGifts.com. Yeah, I own a few. None of which we can.
Okay, all right.
We can think.
That's for the Patreon only TLDR post episode.
Pornhubs.com. No, just kidding.
Yeah, the plural.
Yeah.
I own onlyfan.com.
It's just the one fan. It's sort of like our podcast.
I had a full-on conversation this weekend.
It's a website dedicated to him watching our podcast. OnlyFan.
Oh, it's a constant live stream.
Yeah.
It's just
a constant live stream of you watching Hypercritical?
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. I don't know. I feel like there has been some brilliance with the Star Wars solar system. In that, I feel like Rogue One was a really good movie.
Yeah.
And the way they nailed the ending being the perfect handoff to A New Hope.
And that's what my hope for the rest of...
He has a new hope.
Well, that was my hope for like when they bought the thing. Was like, be brave with the rest of it.
Yeah.
But they've decided to kind of do it with the rest of it. But now it looks like, okay, we know that, Baby Yoda works, but this doesn't with these, and this doesn't with those.
Well, like so Solo was a good movie.
We have our familiar
Solo.
I liked Solo.
So I will say this about and I think I said
people
this
rag
before.
on it. I think it's good.
I think I've said this before. I liked Solo the first time we watched it, and I've liked it like 1% less every time I've seen it afterwards, where I'm just like getting to the point where
you're
I'm
at 97%.
Wait, this is really terrible.
I don't think it's terrible.
But I like it as a film, as a standalone thing. If you want to start tying into the rest of the universe,
that's interesting,
because that's where it gets a bit.
Well, because like the girl, she just doesn't exist so she felt a little bit wedged in there, because like the end of the movie is her going off to find Darth Maul, and there's no other mention or record of her,
and that's
so
one
it
of
feels
the
a little forced.
So that's one of the problems with the Disney era is that they're constantly chasing a revenue stream. And I think that writing that movie, they were like, oh, we're going to spin this off, because it was Star Wars, a solo story.
Kira,
was her name. And like they were going to spin that off and do like a bunch of different in that series.
However, the Game of Thrones finale was a bit of a flop. So value just kind of dropped. And they went,
and by the way,
Clark
just a side note,
fell off.
Emilia Clarke is an amazing actress, and we do not mean to be ragging on two different roles that she played.
No, but like I think that they were expecting that to perform to a certain degree, and it didn't. So they're like, okay, any hints that we dropped that there'd be spin-offs of this, we're canceling this.
Yeah.
And I will, so to kind of close the loop, and we were talking about this before we started recording, but like the James Bond movies, we're watching them, we grew up on them, we watched them a lot, all this other stuff.
Had no idea what was going on when we were watching them.
But
if you're
also
too young,
like,
you don't get it.
We took, we to a degree take them fairly seriously, and like, Dan, you were telling us that like,
it's an action movie.
When they came out, they were kind of self-deprecating.
Yeah, it was supposed to be ridiculous. He was.
Yeah, and
but
like that's not saying that you're like.
I remember my dad telling me he was like in his early 20s, whatever it was, when that came out. And he went literally the cinema just pissed itself laughing as the camera like panned down. He was like, "It's Bond, James Bond," just that thing. So it was. There was a sense of ridiculousness, and almost overacting into the thing, tied into the rest of this.
What I wanted to say, and like, and then that with that in mind, when you go through like all of the, womanizing and like all of even like all the ridiculous gadget stuff and all that stuff, it's kind of like, self-deprecating, and it's tongue in cheek, and it's like, it's a joke.
The cheesy one-liners are supposed to be cheesy
and
one-liners, I've
and
always
so,
wanted
but
to
like
have Christmas
now,
in Turkey. Or Turkey and Christmas, whatever one was. Christmas in Turkey?
Yeah, because her name is Christmas.
Because, was that Denise Richards?
Yes.
Yeah.
Still a great line. It's ridiculous. It's terrible. It's a great line.
It does make you laugh. You have to laugh.
But we watch those now, especially with like Austin Powers now existing in tandem, where we're like, oh, that's the comedy. This is serious, But I will say that like, and this is where I'm closing the loop on a few different things. The problem with Star Wars now is that it's trying to take itself as like gospel serious. It's like there's so many people that follow this. We have to do it right. We have to, make sure the fans are happy, make sure we're respecting the universe. It's all serious. Nothing's a joke for itself because they have to deliver it in this way. And that's why like I would rather in this moment watch Street Fighter the movie that just like is making fun of the fact that it's a video game movie and all this other stuff, or watch James Bond in that context where like it's making fun of itself in a way, then watch like Star Wars that's like, oh no, this is serious and this is, a religion and we have to like represent
and
this.
If you were to laugh in the movie theater, the producers would be offended. And versus James Bond, they'd be like, that was pretty bad.
But
right?
all the fans would be like, oh, what are you doing?
But that comedic element and that like sense of humor and everything else was Harrison Ford as Han Solo.
Exactly, yeah.
And his thing is like he did that, and he managed to, bring that back until
I was just thinking that too. Yeah, like there's so many perfect moments.
That was what they were missing, because he just was able to do that thing, and that was it was when the new one, or the whatever we call them, the new ones, not the new ones, the middle new ones, the prequels.
Yeah. My mind moved to Indiana Jones
when they came out at the same time.
There's
so
Indiana Jones prequels. Yeah, there's Young Indiana Jones.
The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. Anyway.
No, we're not. No.
Hang on. Nope. So when the prequels came out, there was also Lord of the Rings was out, and Matrix was out. The Matrix trilogy.
Yeah,
right?
When the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings was in 1999. They were all literally in that thing, and there was a whole thing I used to do was Dooku.
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee was in Star Wars and Lord of the Rings.
Whoa, that's great. I was just going to say Harrison Ford had a busy decade in the 80s, but apparently Christopher Lee...
So Christopher Lee did Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and Agent Smith did The Matrix and Lord of the Rings, and then somebody else did another one. I can't remember. Anyway, but at that time then, they were doing this whole, like, how the hell do you make Natalie Portman not attractive? But they managed to do that.
They worked very hard
whilst casting literally Plank from Ed, Edd and Eddie as like the lead role, Hans Christian Andersen, whatever his name is. They had to write. It's
Hayden Christensen. Is who you're talking about? Oh my God!
I'm being deliberately,
He's a cardboard box. I mean,
he's blank.
He is.
And then Matrix were doing. They had this whole love story as well. And then Lord of the Rings decided, do you know what? The book's this long, but we need to go off here into the rest of it, and we need to do that.
And also we need to cut out the stuff that's really important. Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine, after the second one of these things, she just stood there, walked out of the cinema, and I can't remember, after we'd watched all of the second ones of these things, and she just went, fuck's sake, I wish nerds would stop trying to write love stories.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. That's so spot on.
And she was then going back to the original Star Wars, where there was this romance between Leia and Han Solo.
Right, but it was like,
it wasn't nuanced, this forced.
It was very real, because it was awkward, and she says, I love you, and he says, I know, on his way to his death, basically.
But also because
feels real.
Like, I guess by that point, but like to a degree, it's made better by the fact that George Lucas had no idea what was going to happen, right? Because the tension between Luke and Leia that happens.
So we think.
Isn't because he was like, oh, I want to create this romantic tension between these characters, even though they're going to be brother and sister. He was just kind of, we've got a female character and a male character. Maybe they.
Is that why you think that they kissed?
Yeah.
Even though they were brother and sister, it's because they just didn't know that they were because
he was like
ultimately going to be written as brother and sister.
Didn't know that plot point was going to happen. But I don't know. Like, I think that's just like why, again, going back to why like the sequels and the prequels aren't that great is because like what? I adjusted my glasses as I was talking about Star Wars, or what?
No, but that is funny. I'm going to tell you. When you're done, I have to tell you something a speaker said this weekend that was so fucking funny and in context. Yeah. But finish what you're going to say.
Okay, but I was just going to say, like, to your friend's point, it's like the original Star Wars worked because like they were kind of they were figuring out as they went. It was like totally, off the cuff. They were writing scripts and then rewriting scripts, and then they're like, oh well, what if we made Luke and Leia sister and brother? And they're like, oh, but they kissed earlier. It's like, it doesn't matter. We're gonna move forward. Nobody will remember the last.
Well, they didn't know, so it's
okay. But like by the time you got to the prequels, there was like so much universe built around Star Wars and so much fandom, and everybody's overanalyzing everything. And George Lucas is trying to write the whole thing at one time, and he's also like, Padme and Anakin love each other. We need you to show that you love each other. It's like,
even though you have no chemistry on the end of the camera.
And he's 7 years old, and you're this arbitrary age that we're supposed to believe is 15, but you look 21. Yeah. Like, it's so ridiculous.
And I can't remember if, like, I think maybe Anthony was telling us about this or something, but like, George Lucas was also like adamant about doing everything, like directing in some of the prequels, and like they would do a cut and he'd be like, perfect. And everybody around would be like,
that was awful.
Not. And he's like, no, cut it.
And like,
we're good.
You have
like,
Liam Neeson. I mean, he's an amazing actor. You've all like Natalie Portman. You've got all these really talented people, and they're probably all like, but
if you go back and you look at that, I can't believe this is becoming a Star Wars podcast. But if you go back and you look at it, I remember saying at the time it's written by George Lucas, directed by George Lucas. There's no Lawrence Kasdan. There's no joint writers. There's no this. There's just he goes into a room, writes this thing. That's why I used to love, what is it, Red Letter Media? Yeah. That just tore the films apart at the time and just went, it's just him in a room and everybody goes, this is great.
Have you seen the behind the scenes of them filming the scene in the prequel where they go get Anakin from his mom? They're like sitting around the table eating.
I know what you're going to talk about, yeah.
And it's like, I have to use the actors' names suddenly. I can't think of like the characters' names. It's Liam Neeson, Hayden Christensen. No, not Hayden Christensen. Sorry, because it's like young Anakin. Natalie Portman, the mom.
Christopher Lloyd, right? Is that who it was?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Yeah, Ewan McGregor.
And Jar Jar Binks, but the actor is wearing like a ridiculous headpiece thing. Yes. And it's all
he has a prosthetic head,
right? But they're going through the scene like it's totally normal, and everyone is super straight faced, and you're watching it, and you're like, "This is the most ridiculous thing." If I were at that table, I'd be like, "I can't do this. Like, I can't take this seriously."
Yeah.
But I guess at that point in time, they were used to seeing
God, most annoying character of the
McGregor
20th century. I mean, like ridiculous.
Two things on that, and then we can move on past talking about Star Wars.
I keep trying to pull us. I'm trying to pull us back to James Bond.
Yeah. But. One, I'm pretty sure the actor that played Jar Jar Binks got so much negative backlash that he like quit acting and like was like super depressed.
That's not his fault
and all
though.
this
He was
other
playing
stuff.
it. That's like
he was doing
villain.
What he was told.
You know what I mean?
You know?
Like people, they're actors who have been like attacked in the street.
Yeah.
And they're like,
well, it's like Draco or
I take that as a compliment. Like obviously my acting skills are really strong if you hate me because I was the bad guy in a movie.
Yeah. And then I think it was maybe Ian McKellen with Lord of the Rings. There's like, interviews with him where he lost his shit because he's used to acting on a set with other actors, and he's like, I'm just in this fucking green box and like there's nobody else here. How am I supposed to do this?
He needs someone to play off of. All right, when you think about James Bond, I'm pulling us out of this. When you think about James Bond, two things actually. One, Sean Connery surviving how bad those movies really were when you really think about it says a lot about what a great actor he is, because he had an entire full amazing career. And I'm not trying, I think he did a great job playing James Bond, but like when you really look back or like rewatch
League
some of those.
Extraordinary Gentlemen.
I loved that movie.
Highlander.
Yeah. Oh, Highlander. Yeah. I was talking about Highlander.
That film where he was in the black Speedo.
Zardoz.
Speedo things. Thank you.
That's his Halloween costume this year. He's an amazing actor, and I still think
just like revolver. He's got a revolver and like
a handlebar mustache, right?
The whole thing.
And like a ponytail.
I don't think the Bond films were as bad at the time, especially when you look at other things that were out there.
Yeah, no, I agree.
At the time.
If you had to pinpoint, what's the first thing that comes to mind as the most ridiculous James Bond moment across all the movies? I can go first because I have a couple, if that helps.
Yeah.
Okay, one is Roger Moore. I can't remember which movie it is.
I thought you just meant Roger Moore in general.
No. I always really liked Roger Moore, but honestly, when I rewatch all of James Bond, I'm like, the Roger Moore era wasn't great.
Yeah, it was.
It's not even his fault. It's just like Sean Connery. Like, it's not his fault because you watch them again.
Pierce Brosnan as well. You just got the wrong.
Well,
anyway,
I love the Pierce Brosnan era. I will.
And I still stand by Timothy Dalton's the best James Bond.
God, he's so good.
Like he's the best, and he's like and like not like, because James Bond in the books is supposed to be kind of like not suave. He's kind of like ugly looking, and Timothy Dalton is not that. But I think he has like the cold side of James Bond.
Wasn't that also
that was a description of what he was supposed to be? It was like there's cold in his eyes.
Yeah,
and he's basically
Timothy Dalton has very like dark features.
The description was almost the closest thing to the written description was kind of Daniel Craig.
And
but it became
George
more dark-haired.
Lazenby, I would argue, is
George Lazenby.
kind of...
George Lazenby's maybe the most like book appropriate one.
That's what I think too, because like Daniel Craig though was capable of pulling off the whole like charming, suave, whatever. And like Pierce Brosnan maybe more so than any other actor that played James Bond. It's just that his era was so cheesy.
He got the really bad writing.
But he, as an actor, is like exceptional
general, like,
at the whole like.
Would you like to be pierced?
What?
This is what my mum used to say about Pierce Brosnan.
Mike, how far is?
She used to just say, "Oh, I'd love to be pierced."
Okay, I cannot wait to meet your mom. He's from like a small town in Ireland, right? Like, where is that compared to where you grew up?
In the same country.
The same country.
I honestly, I can't remember. And
there's this thing I saw on Instagram where
I can't remember where, because then it could be one of those things of like he's from here, you know, in the same way Bill Clinton's from a town called Hope. He's not. He's from down the road from Hope, but the rumor is he's from.
Well, we're from Dallas.
No.
But there's this clip on the internet where it's like a press tour thing where like a bunch of different outlets are interviewing actors after a movie comes out, and it's this guy sitting down with Pierce Brosnan. And he's just chatting with them, and he's like, "Where are you from in Ireland?" And he's like, "Oh, this is about to get really interesting." And he says the name of the town. And it's the equivalent of us meeting someone, and imagine that I loved Carrollton, and it's like very special to me. It's like the interviewer saying, like, "I grew up in Carrollton." And he has this whole like really sweet moment. It's just some like small town. Anyway, okay,
yes.
I can't remember. Most ridiculous James Bond
distracted
moment.
you with my mother's comments.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can't. I will say, I can't wait to meet her.
Roger
because
Moore,
you told me about her before, and I just love her.
Roger Moore, you have to give the benefit of the doubt, because like he was in a contract, and like by the end when it was starting to get really ridiculous,
A View to a Kill, he shouldn't have done.
And
that was his last one, I think.
Is he in A View to a Kill? No, that's
A View to a Kill and The Living Daylights were
License to Kill.
Dalton.
License to Kill.
License to Kill and The Living Daylights, in the opposite order, are the two Timothy Daltons. Roger Moore absolutely was Bond in A View to a Kill with Christopher Walken.
I can remember the cover art now.
Yep.
Yes, I have to actually sing the songs.
Yeah.
So I had to go.
It's how I remember the one in Greece. That's honestly probably my favorite Roger Moore.
But Roger
one of my
Moore,
favorite overall. Actually.
Roger Moore was, I think he's like, or he was, or still is, like like
Sir Roger Moore. I believe.
He's like an strong into anti-violence, like pacifist, hates guns and all this other stuff.
So he hated that scene.
Yeah, and so like that was one of the things he hated, where like Christopher Walken's gunning down people. There's like a quote from him on that.
It's a pretty horrific scene.
And he also like in interviews and like to the producers was like, I'm just going to make up a number. I don't know. He's like, I'm 65 years old. This girl is 19. This is gross.
I think you definitely exaggerated a little bit, but no, I have respect for him as an actor. I think he's a great guy, but based on like public appearances and like things he said, and he's not a bad actor. It's that the writing was pretty bad.
Yeah, but he did have a couple left in his contract, but then he wanted off. Whereas the opposite was happening with Pierce Brosnan,
and Timothy Dalton,
who had another
Timothy Dalton,
and then they want so like he was like, we're taking this new direction, and Pierce Brosnan was like, oh, yes, we're gonna go darker. It's like, well, we are gonna go darker with the role, and
well, that was like, and
but
I can't remember.
Timothy
Dalton was gonna do
way more.
2 more movies at least,
right.
And there was something with like some weird contractual stuff, and then like the rights to the movie, and so like it got flip flopped, and he ended up doing something else.
With the studio as well, and the family.
That's that's a shame, because he was good. Like I thought License to Kill was fine. The Living Daylights was a good movie, like a really good movie. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, of course.
He has to like. He's with another agent. They're supposed to assassinate someone, but then it turns out that she was set up to do it, and like it's a whole thing.
That's the one with the cello and
yes, exactly. And she's annoying. The girl is usually annoying.
Wow,
it's true.
Wow.
Okay, so there's one with Roger Moore, and like M shows up at like in like the middle of the night to his like private home.
Okay, wait, I just got my
or like a hotel, and he comes in, and I guess it's a girl that he works with, that James and M work with. And he makes her hide in the closet.
Yeah.
And she's like trying to get dressed in the closet, but like M shows up middle of the night.
Yeah.
I think he even says it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and he makes it in the espresso.
Yeah.
And it's like splashing all over the place. It's like this like horrific, ridiculous.
And he like
scene.
steams the espresso.
He puts the steam one in the espresso, and you're like, what are you doing?
Full circle in the podcast.
Oh my God, I was just thinking that too. We're back to espresso. And so then like Moneypenny shows up.
This is all an elaborate.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then Moneypenny shows up, and James still
Yeah.
has this poor girl hiding in the closet. And I'm like, yeah, she works with you, but like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
They showed up on your turf in the middle of the night. So then they leave, and he opens the closet, and she's like, oh no. And one of the gadgets that M gave him was like highly magnetized watch, whatever.
Yeah.
And he like unzips
Undoes her
her
zip.
dress, and you're like, this is so
Okay,
bad.
the most ridiculous.
That's terrible, right?
Dan, are you ready with one? Do you want to go?
You go.
Okay, I'm gonna pull out the I think what's gonna be the winner.
Oh man, I think I know what you're gonna say. Is it in
Japanese Sean Connery.
Japanese Sean Connery is so bad and like would not fly today. Like most of this wouldn't, but that is the most offensive movie. They're like, oh, we make you. And it's like, no, what are you doing?
We shaved you and gave you bigger eyebrows or something. Just like,
I think they also like.
and gave him a weird bowl haircut or something.
Oh, the haircut was really bad.
Yeah, it was
And
very,
now
it was very
he's
vocal.
certifiably passes as Japanese for sure.
Oh yes, he blends right in.
God, I'm trying to think of what was
I have one more. If
Go.
you,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what was the most ridiculous.
Well, the
thing, 'cause
entire-
there is a lot of just, but that kind of weirdly, the first thing that came to my mind was when he jumps in the plane and lands in the rubber dinghy from the plane, and my brain went, "Oh,
the rocket suit was a pretty
that
bad
was
one,
Indiana
too.
Jones."
Oh,
What was it? Was it in Kingdom? Because I think it was in Kingdom of Crystal Skull, where like the nuclear bomb goes off and he gets in the refrigerator
Yeah.
and survives.
It's those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's so dumb.
Sorry, what was your?
So
your James
the
Bond
entire movie,
ridiculousness?
Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah.
But at the very end, when they're on the boat and the idiot like assassin brothers or whatever with the
Oh,
horrible haircut,
Mr. White and Mr. whatever.
Yeah.
did they come out with the
They were-
cake?
they were
And he's
La
just
Bombe-
walking.
La
Le
Bombe
Bombe
Surprise.
Surprise. And he's just walking towards him,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh no, what do we do?" And they're just letting him slowly, and it's
Yeah.
obviously like a super fake cake.
Yeah.
That whole scene is so terrible that it's like perfect too.
Yeah. And that's also something that like totally did not age well. And it's like this whole like they're evil and gay thing. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. God, what do they call each other? It's like Mr. White and
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah,
something.
I can't remember.
it's not coming to me.
We watched that episode. Oh, I'm not gonna go there. Never mind.
I don't know if I can pick a most ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's immediately jumping at me because they're kind of going. They're all.
And we are
much
They all
of it
have
is-
something.
So much of it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
but it does a really good job of, at least I think so, to some degree, of like setting the bar of like you're kind of okay with this to be ridiculous to this point.
Right.
Oh, agreed.
It's,
Totally.
it's ridiculous. If we did this next thing, it's like the other. What was it? I don't know. Whatever we're on now, Die Hard 17 or something.
I lost Die
Or
Hard
just
after 3.
So
Like,
many
I
of
can't-
these
4
things,
or 5.
whatever
Yeah.
the hell. I don't
Yeah.
know. But they just do these things where you are sitting there going, "That's too much."
Okay,
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious is still making movies.
Yeah.
I'm like, when Paul
I've seen-
Walker died, I kind of thought they'd be like, that's it.
No.
There
There have been like 6 movies.
and
since
there are
then.
jokes about how ridiculous some of the scenes are in Fast and the Furious movies. And like I haven't watched those past the first one.
The first one's not bad.
Well,
That first one's not bad.
They're
And
on
like
9 now.
yeah.
Genuinely.
And there's
But there
something
are
where
also
like
3 spin-offs now
Yeah.
with The Rock and Jason Statham.
Oh, okay.
Hobbs and
What?
whatever
oh, those
the
are
hell.
spin-offs. Okay.
So yeah, because they were in
What are they called?
Hobbs and some,
Yeah.
as far as I know,
Oh
there's
my
also been a
God.
spin-off, maybe 2, where
Yeah.
there was one of the Fast.
I wonder
and
if Paul
Furious
Walker's
ones.
like estate is still getting money off of
Probably.
those. Because he helped like lay the groundwork for those
Yeah.
being a series
Well,
that people like.
He's still a shot in every single one of them, as far as I know. I'm not watching, but as far as I know, in all the trailers of here's the next one, there is always a
I thought they were like
Dom Toretto.
No,
Where does that
Dom is
sound
Vin Diesel.
familiar?
Yeah.
So I think that's what I mean as the character. But I think there's
I hate
always
that I know that though.
there's
Like,
always
oh
a
God.
moment where he's staring off into the distance
remembering,
or something and remembering.
Yeah.
You know,
'Cause, like, it's been
giving thumbs up and
It's been
whatever.
a while since Paul Walker died.
Yeah.
This is just like Steve Irwin for me. The fact that Paul Walker died, like racing, like in a car accident, absolutely blows my mind. But I'm pretty sure that he filmed quite a few of his scenes for whichever one that was. And then they did CGI for him basically driving off a cliff or something. And you're like, CGI is so cool. It looks so real. And then you watch it now and you're like, this is terrible.
It does not look good.
But I could see how they could keep making the movies and being like, oh no, it looks like he's in it. Because remember like Carrie Fisher?
Yeah.
Back to Star Wars, damn it. But it's so good. You're like, that looks amazing.
Speaking of ridiculous scenes, that pissed me though.
It looks okay, but like you could see them trying to do it. And like Tarkin comes back in one of them where they have the general and like it looks pretty fake in CGI. They got better by Mandalorian when they have Luke Skywalker come in.
That wasn't bad. Did you know they did CGI for, Top Gun, the Maverick movie that came out? Don't say it. Give me like 2 seconds to think of his name.
Tom Cruise.
No.
Val Kilmer.
Fuck you. I was almost there and I said, don't say it.
Well, I didn't want to sit here.
Val Kilmer actually does have like, I don't remember exactly what it is, but like he can't speak anymore, which is just like Bruce Willis. Yeah. Like it's so sad seeing all these like childhood actors suddenly reach like Christina Applegate has multiple sclerosis and she.
I didn't know that.
No, she's in bad shape. It's really sad. Selma Blair, same thing. But they did CGI for that one scene where he speaks. Yeah. I thought he was able to like struggle through a line. Yeah. It's CGI.
Oh wow.
Oh, I thought he'd done some of it and managed to like force and they
maybe it's worth looking, but I heard that it was CGI.
Because I thought somebody told me it was that they didn't know that he was going to do it and he just sort of stopped typing or something, stood up and then tried to get the words out and did it. So that was even Cruise's
and
face,
then did you hear that Celine Dion has like a really rare disease and it affects her ability to speak and sing?
Wow.
Why? Like of all the things, one of the best singers of like multiple generations. She's like the one thing I can't do anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's one more. Justin Bieber.
Oh
same thing.
Oh my God.
Just saying.
We should probably start wrapping this up.
It's a cruel world.
I'm like stuck in this. I'm thinking about ridiculous things that happen in.
I actually wondered if this should be like a 2-part one. Like how are we at?
I didn't set the timer, so I have no idea how long it's been going.
I think it's been going on.
It could be a part 1 and part 2.
It's probably wrapping up. You're getting into like sad
2 parts with me in it.
Sad celebrity things. And
I'm sorry.
I'm still stuck on like because it's actually funny because I recently saw like a thread on Reddit or something that was like, what's the most ridiculous thing that you saw in Fast and the Furious? So it was like our past 2 topics combined.
Interesting.
And some guy, and like I've never seen any of the movies, but like the one that stuck in my mind was like, my favorite part was when a car is flipping over and about to crash into Dom's car and he punches it out of the way.
No, he doesn't. Oh my God.
Like shit like that happens. Like, or like they're on a highway overpass and he intentionally launches himself off the highway, jumps out of his car to grab the girl.
I've seen that scene. I've seen that scene. That's real. Well,
but anyway,
I'm not sure if I can validate if that actually is in the film. So I haven't really seen.
No, I want to watch them. We actually literally during COVID we were like, let's literally pick a series and we're not going to skip anything. We're going to watch all of them. We never once thought about Fast and Furious, not once. We were like, man, we're out. We watched them all.
I don't ever think about Fast and Furious. Not to be honest.
Well, fair enough. But we were actively thinking about like what are movie series because we're running out and we've watched like as many as we can think of.
The fact that you didn't think of it kind of
it says a lot.
There you go.
Yeah, true.
Well, anyway, we should wrap it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us this week on Hypercritical. Special thanks to all of our patrons. You can see their names scrolling up over the screen right now.
Do you know that Jason calls Liquid Death a sponsor?
Does he really? Just because he drinks it on
he has it on camera every time. And we were joking about how they're going to reach out and be like, this is a cease and desist order. Please stop. We don't want to be affiliated with this absolute nonsense. I'm going to tell you something ridiculous he said this weekend after.
Okay.
I decided it's not suitable.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. It's always great to have a guest.
Sure, I'll regret
Mix
it
up
later.
The conversation. Yeah, when you get to in 6 weeks when it airs, you'll be like, hey, could you actually not put that live? I don't want to be affiliated with this. Actually,
he's our Liquid Death.
Yeah.
I don't know them.
I think that was CGI. They stole my image.
Oh my God, right. Yep. Dan's been CGI this whole time.
Whether I'm CGI or not, leave a comment.
Yeah, drop a comment down below.
Ooh,
if you think Dan's a real person or not.
I would also like people to comment on what cocktail we should make next.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
I just didn't have a response, but then you
go,
had like a very like.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't like new cocktails in the mix, Shannon.
What do you want me to make?
I don't just keep talking now and then you fade out, or do we?
No, usually we keep talking,
he says that, but
and we don't fade out. We just we cut it when it cuts.
Yeah, you just cut it when it cuts.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the Monty Python bit then.
Yeah.
Domines requiem.
That's a movie that has aged well. It's still funny.
Oh, funny is funny.
So fucking good.
Yeah.
When I first saw that, I was in like 6th grade, and I had never.